With 22 million UK users, LinkedIn offers a fabulous opportunity to find your ideal clients and to stay ahead of your competition. But what do these future clients currently find when they visit your profile? First impressions count. So, are you proud of your fantastic profile because it is client ready and written with them in mind? Or do you look at it and wonder how you could do better because you are not generating leads? My Marketing Guy works with those who want to take advantage of the amazing potential offered by LinkedIn. So, for more details, please email guy@mymarketingguy.co.uk to arrange an initial consultation. Remember, your next client is on LinkedIn. You're listening to Go Fish, exclusively on the Pod Station.
Welcome everyone to the episode 47 of the Go Fish Marketing Podcast. I nearly forgot my numbers then, having pre-rehearsed it in my head. My name's Mark, my business is Funky Vibes. Joining me are my fellow co-hosts, the ever-inspiring, he was sexy until he buttoned up his shirt, but it's now been put away so I can concentrate fully on the show. It's Mr. Chris Roxburgh from My Marketing Guy. How are you doing, Chris?
Not so bad. Hi, everybody.
And also joining us is now the old hand at this, going into her second episode as our also fellow co-host. It's the lovely Ishtar Ali from Ancora Interiors. How are you doing, Ishtar?
Very good. Episode 2.
I know. Yay. Get in there. You're still here.
So this is the first one today and I was totally buzzing. So I am all psyched up for today's discussion.
What you didn't realise when you signed up to this was you're going to have to buy a whole new internet system at a cost of like £10,000 in order to be able to do it.
Yeah, but it's been worth it. I'm already getting a lot of laughs and a lot of love from the first podcast. So, you know, I'm quite excited for what's to come now.
Chris, I'm worried about the fact she's getting lots of love and laughs from the show. I don't think I've had any love or any laughs.
No, and it was noticeable that people did, when you introduced Ishtar as a new co-host, people did pile on and they wished her luck. I don't quite know that she needed luck, but maybe it was luck working with us.
Well, does this constitute us hanging with a cool kid?
I'd like to think about it that way. I've just made you two way cooler.
I think that's right, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to say something witty back, but I can't think of anything.
Hooray, I won the first round.
So, moving on to the first... Well, I suppose before we go on, Ishtar, now this is your second show. Would you like to explain what it is we aim to try and achieve with these shows?
Oh gosh, you're putting me on the spot a little bit. But as far as I am concerned, I believe the purpose of these shows is really to share knowledge on marketing and business-related topics so that you, the audience, can get some valuable little nuggets out of it. Is that a good summary?
That's an excellent summary.
It's certainly better than what we'd have come up with.
That was totally off the cuff as well, so yeah.
Now, Ishtar's already got an episode under her belt. If you want to go and listen to that episode, or indeed all the other episodes, which of course include Chris and I, and the lovely Elaine Atherton, then you can go and check them out on the podstation.co.uk/gofish. You could also find us on all of the major podcast platforms, presumably you're using one if you're already listening to us, but in case you aren't, if you go to that website page, you're just given there's links that take you to all of those platforms. It's so easy. There's no excuse whatsoever. Right. Oh, you can also check us out on social media. We're on all of the platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You just go to Go Fish Marketing. You'll be able to find us there. We'd put some tips out. We post some questions. We want to hear what your thoughts are. If we say something you fundamentally disagree with, tell us. If we forget to mention something, tell us. If there is a topic you would like us to cover, tell us. It's dead easy. Right, moving on to the first point of order. We usually cover a news tip, Chris, that's current, marketing related. So it was your turn to come up with one this week. What did you come up with?
Well, one jumped into my lap a few days ago during the test match between England and New Zealand, when a lad on his debut, people decided to delve into his social media background, and in actual fact came up with some pretty foul racist and sexist tweets on Twitter, obviously. Now, this was a day that should have been the biggest in this lad's life, but his past came back to haunt him, and I think that there's a number of different things we can discuss around this. But one of the things I've always said on my social media workshops are that you are what you post. So think carefully before you post. Whether you're posting on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, Instagram, all of them, because this lad has now been suspended from international cricket. He's only played one game, and of course now the tweets, I should say, were something like 10 to 12 years old when he was 18. But now people are delving back into every other player in the side's tweets, and they're coming up with things that certainly weren't as bad as this fellow's, but they are coming up with stuff that could be construed as being amusing, should we say? They're not the ones I've seen aren't racist or sexist. They could be construed as being amusing, but times have changed, so they are no longer regarded as being acceptable. And I think the question is, leaving aside the fellow who's been suspended, because I think it was absolutely 100% right to do that. I think what he said, what he did was just utterly unacceptable. But everyone else is now getting dragged into the maelstrom, and how acceptable is it, and how far back can you go on the basis that standards change, language change, attitudes change? I offer that to you two. What do you feel is acceptable? Should people be hung out to dry for attitudes they might have had 10, 12, 15 years ago, or not?
Perhaps taking that question and spinning it slightly and then throwing it right onto Ishtar's lap. Looking at it from a business perspective, we are all business owners, so we all use social media now for business purposes. And so there is probably a more focused, I don't know what's the word, aim to be specific with what we post and why we post it, because when it's your business, you've kind of got the welfare of that always clawing in the back of your head whenever you're doing something. And even your personal stuff might be still with the business in the back of your head going, well, I'd like to post that, it's personal and there should be no reason why I can't. However, it might not look right for the business, so I'm not going to do it. So we're all in that position, I guess, now, and perhaps you might not be, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but rewind that to before you were a business owner and perhaps life was a bit more simple, there was less responsibilities, you could have a bit more of a laissez-faire attitude towards life. And certainly, I mean, in this particular cricketer's instance, you're going right back to when you're teenagers now. Both Chris and I suppose I are far too old, where we managed to avoid that enormous pitfall because social media wasn't really a thing when I was the same age as this cricketer was throwing these things out. But by the same token, I think it's fair to say that we're probably all guilty of having done something which, with hindsight, we look back and thought was utterly stupid in hindsight when we were young. Might not have been this kind of stuff, but we probably, I don't know, ran around with our underpants on our head in the public for a dare. I'm not saying I did, by the way, Mum or Dad. But you know what I mean. It's things where you look back and you go, God, that was a daft thing I did there. So should you be going back through your social media feeds and trying to find these things and deleting them, or solve it for me, Ishtar?
It's such a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I haven't ever been a real prolific user of social media on a personal level, to be honest. I've got on Facebook something like 36 friends and there's like 40 friends on Instagram or something. So I think even though I have had in Facebook since 2008 or 2010, I've always had a private profile, and that, I guess that's just because I wanted to maintain some privacy, but that also probably is a sense of like the kind of upbringing that I've had and the type of experiences that I've had that have kind of led me to not want to post my whole life on social media versus other people who actually like to do that and like to express their concerns or like to share information that they think is appropriate. And obviously when you're a younger person, you don't know what it's going to lead to. You don't know who's going to see that. You don't really have the cares that you have when you become a little bit older. And obviously this, individual has I think apologized, hasn't he, Chris, on the stuff that happened. And you don't know what he did was clearly wrong, and you don't know the circumstances to which brought him to that post, right? Is it fair to kind of hold them accountable for something that they've done 12 years ago? I feel like it's unfair, honestly. I think if somebody's apologized that they've done something wrong, time has passed, people do change. And I think, when the whole social media thing kicked off, I don't think anybody realized how big it was going to get and that it would have such a massive impact on our lives. Now we're 12 years down the line. Mm-hmm. And so I just think, going back that far is probably a little bit harsh.
But hasn't Ishtar hit the nail on the head there, Chris, by virtue of her opinion on that being perhaps slightly different from yours? It's not a case of who's right or wrong, but the fact that because it now exists, the debate exists. And so from a business perspective, you're instantly diluting your client opportunities because people will see it, and some might feel sympathetic and perhaps look back and think in the same way as Ishtar, they were young, they were daft. It happens to some people and they learn and they move on and they develop as humans. There might be other people who think, no, that's categorically not acceptable and I'm not going anywhere near them. And so whatever the stance is on the debate, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, you've created a debate and therefore you're going to get caught up in it and lose out either way.
Yeah, yes, and Ishtar's right. He has apologised. Is he sorry because he was caught, or is he sorry because he wrote them? Who knows? Only he knows. I hope it's the latter, personally. And people do change, of course they do. What concerns me now is the wider thing that as a sports person, any sportsman, woman is their own brand. So they are in business, if you like. So they do have to be careful. And what concerns me now is because they've been able to go back donkey's years on his tweets, people are doing it on every other high-profile sports person's tweets to see what they can dig up. And it's just that to me is almost as unacceptable as what he did in the first place. I mean, he deserves whatever's coming to him.
Yeah.
But to the mildly inoffensive, which might have been mildly inoffensive 10, 12 years ago, but now just not acceptable. Do those tweets deserve to be unearthed and held up to scrutiny by today's standards?
Yeah.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, this is in the news today, but it's been in the news for several years. I mean, look at what was happening with US politics over the last, 4 years or whatever. There was always stuff that was coming out. But it's true, like social media always, we hear it so many times, social media posts always come back to bite you in the bum. At some point when, you are becoming successful, somebody will find something that has been posted somewhere, or a picture, as Mark alluded to before, that, you might be embarrassed about.
Hang on a minute. That was not a real picture. I challenge anyone to find a picture.
I will take on that challenge. But the point is like people will, unless you were saying that you've adopted social media a little bit later in your life when you're probably a little bit more mature and you're a bit more understanding of what the implication and the repercussions of social media can be, then that's going to be different to the fact that now kids are using it from the age of 9. So you're going to post completely different content because you're in a different mindset and all of this kind of stuff. So is that going to haunt them in 30 years when they come back and they've posted something inappropriate now?
Well, very possibly. If you're doing, turning it back to more of a business perspective, if you're tendering for huge contracts, I did some work for a company a couple of months ago, and they were tendering for a huge one, absolutely massive it was. When you've got that sort of money on the line, there is every possibility that they will hire people to go back through to make sure that the people who are doing the work for them are people who aren't going to massively damage their brand. If it transpires that they've got a load of outrageous racists who have been ardent followers of the Ku Klux Klan doing work for their business, that could absolutely cripple their brand identity. And so there is a means of doing it. I think, and I don't watch it, but The Apprentice, I think they have a round, don't they, where they get a load of people in, recruitment specialists who dig through everybody's dirty laundry online and start grilling them about it. And that's a perfect example of what might happen. So, I mean, my advice is, if you think you've got anything stupid on there, go back and get rid of it. And going forward, just think twice before you press the send button.
Exactly.
Because I'll say it again, you are what you post. That's a reflection of who you are, what you write down. So if in doubt, don't do it.
Amen. We do have another news feature, don't we, as well, Chris, which is more tied to the topic we're going to discuss today.
Yes, we do. Analytics is our topic today, and I was tasked with looking into Facebook analytics, which was short and sweet because Facebook are scrapping their analytics package. So that was my job done.
Yeah, indeed. 30th of June. Yeah, well done, Chris. That's hard work as always on your part. Yeah, on the 30th of June, Facebook are getting rid of their analytics tool, which, before everyone starts having a complete meltdown, isn't the insight stuff you use now largely through their business suite option. It was something that I think they created more to challenge the Google Analytics side of things, and on the basis that I think very few people actually really use it, and with the change that Apple has implemented with a lot of GDPR and privacy stats, I think Facebook have decided that they're flogging a bit of a dead horse with this one. So it's a ship that sailed quietly out of the dock in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But if you are a user of it, you do need to go on there and download your stuff before the 30th of June, or else it won't be there anymore. And they only allow you to download in 3-month segments as well. So if you've been using it for years, you've got to get yourself a bottle of beer, put some nice telly on, and just bed down for the evening, because you might be there a while.
That sounds like fun.
Well, you can come round and do mine, Ishtar.
About one less set of figures to worry about, isn't it?
To be fair, I've never ever looked at it, and I was getting all of my business from Facebook, so that just says something, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose that nicely brings us on to the topic at hand, insofar as what you've just said there. When we say analytics, what do we mean? Because obviously we'll mention Google Analytics, we've already mentioned Facebook Analytics, but what is it that we're actually meaning when we're looking at this? What's the point? What do we use them for? Ishtar, I'll start with you. How do you use them?
I am going to be absolutely honest. I had, when I was on pre-launch, lots of people telling me you have to have your website sorted. You have to have Google Analytics as part of your website. You need to have your social media pages set up, and you need to look at your insights all the time and just track who it is that's looking at you, how much engagement you get into every post. And I can honestly say in the last 18 months, I probably looked at insights probably twice. I've only logged on to Google Analytics today because this was part of the topic, and I was like, wow, there's all this stuff that I didn't even know was there. And I just haven't maybe I haven't had time, maybe I haven't had the interest, whatever it has been, I just haven't really looked at it to the extent that everybody has been telling me to look at it. But I guess, how important is it? And that would be an interesting part of the discussion today.
Well, a very interesting point of the discussion, given what you've just described then. Chris, what about you?
I use analytics in a fairly sparing way as well. In days gone by, I was very excited by the Facebook Pixel. It was the Facebook Pixel is headlined to measure, optimize, and facilitate retargeting of your of any campaign that you might have. Great, but you've got to analyze. You've got to look at these things constantly and learn from them constantly. And I don't know about you, Mark, but I haven't got the time to be trawling through figures, a lot of which I don't fully understand the implications of. I tend to concentrate my fire on, has my post, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter in the past, LinkedIn currently, has it generated a lot of views? Where have those views come from? Have they been relevant? And if that's the case, then I'm a happy bunny. The other thing is you've got to get a little bit of work from it as well. You've got to get the odd inquiry to keep the wolf from the door.
I suppose there's two elements to the analytics, Ishtar, in that I suppose number one, the question is, if you get enough work, is it necessary? Number two, I suppose it's is your personality that way inclined? I did in fact, got the staff to do one as well, where we did like a personal insights report on what your personality strengths and weaknesses were, and those results sort of showed who was more creative and who was more data driven. And so I suspect people who were more analytical would pore over this sort of stuff, whereas the creatives would have very little time or indeed regard for it and just want to go off and be creative.
But I think also it has something to do from personal experience. Like, you wear so many hats when you are an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, right? Especially at the start, and it's extremely overwhelming to have to be the accountant, be the lawyer, be this, be that, whatever, and still deliver and sell and blah blah blah. So I feel like on that list of all of those hats that I had to wear and all the priorities, analytics was probably always last, because I was always trying to just lead generate and trying to get a message out there. And it can probably fling in mud at the wall kind of approach, as opposed to anything more structured. But for me, I feel like that's why it hasn't I haven't put too much focus on it, to be honest, because I just feel like I've been so much more focused on everything else than that.
I'm going to stand in the corner of analytics. I'm going to back it up, and I'm going to be a supporter, because I think marketing, from my past experience, was always quite a salty topic, because there was very intangible elements to it, and there was always that air of skepticism. So if somebody was going to ask for something, I want to do this, and you go, all right, it's this much, the immediate response was, well, am I going to get the work from that? And you go, well, you might do, you might not do, at which point when I was a lawyer side of things, as the owner of a law firm, was like, well, that's not really a good enough answer for me, because you're asking me to SEO was a good example. People were asking me for sort of 1,500 quid, £2,000 a month to do SEO, and I was like, well, how much work am I going to get from this? How quick is that going to start to transpire? Because 6 months down the line, That's a lot of money when you're saying it should start to take effect. Well, how much work have I got to get in just to claw back what I've already spent before I then start going into profits? And so things like that, I feel, certainly with analytics, like ad campaigns on social media, allow for you to really track that customer journey, so you can very much see the nuances of where they've gone, where they've come from, whether you've converted them, which then in turn allows you to go, well, I spent £100 on that campaign and I've had 3 jobs off that. Happy days.
I think as well, we are all talking from the point of view of a micro business. In our cases at the moment, yours might have been a little bit bigger in the past, Mark, your business. I think if your company is a little bit bigger, then the data that you can collect from your social media sites, it does give you a good idea as to the type of content that your audience is responding to. In terms of the liking, sharing, and commenting, we can do this from to a lesser degree as a smaller business, but as a larger business, there will be more content. There will be more members of staff that will be able to analyze this. We have to do everything, don't we? And sometimes analytics get put on the back burner. Once I've checked the top line analytics that I'm interested in, and as I said earlier, that's reach of posts. Am I still achieving a decent reach? And are people still liking, sharing, commenting?
Ishtar, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say that I thought we would be having this conversation and it'd be sacrilegious for me to say that I wasn't really focused on analytics speaking to 2 marketing guys. So I am quite surprised about your very different opinions on this, because I feel like so much, I do realize the value of it. And now that we've had this exercise and I've sat and looked at who is actually looking at my stuff, it is so interesting. But I feel like exactly what you said, Mark, if you're paying somebody to do your social media for you, this statistical stuff actually becomes much more important, because what is your ROI? It can't just be on leads. For example, on Instagram, the insights on Instagram, there's loads of people saying that you need to look at the insights, you need to look at which posts are responding correctly. But, that just increases your followers. Does that necessarily increase the amount of business that comes to you? So do you want to have 100,000 followers, or do you want 2 leads a month? I mean, to what extent are the insights going to give you one versus the other, I guess?
The brain processes nearly 10,000 visual and oral cues per minute. As first impressions stick, make the customer see your business in the right way. Funky Vibes can ensure your vibes attract the right tribe with their marketing expertise, graphic design, bespoke websites, and social media packages. For more information or a no-commitment initial consultation, simply email your tribe at funkyvibe.co.uk.
So beyond the voyeuristic, which is what Ishtar's just described, I guess that it's where it fits into your marketing strategy, which is always the relevance of these things. So social media, if social media isn't something you get work from and isn't something you need in order to be a successful business, then not doing anything with or paying any attention to social media is a choice you can afford to make, because that's not your business. And I suppose analytics is very much the same. It's one of those things where you will probably use it for the specific purpose for which you are interested. So if you want to measure the return on interest of, say, an ad campaign, it's a great tool to do exactly that. If you want to measure your customer journey, then it's another great tool. But if you're not bothered about those things, and there's pros and cons to why you may or may not be, trends and preferences is another one. So do you have peaks and troughs throughout the year of audiences, and if so, when and why? These are all things that you can use, but only if you feel it's needed in order to do something specific. So you might have enough work, in which case are you just looking at it to try and anticipate what future opportunities might be, or do you not need it at all at the minute because life's just cushy?
I suppose I've got to qualify what I've just said. I was talking from an entirely personal point of view as to my attitude towards my analytics. When I'm handling the social media for a client, and as you know, Mark, I handled the social media for a number of years for a law firm up in Lancashire. And I would produce a 14, 15, 16-page report every month for them with the statistics all broken down, all analysed, their progress plotted, the demographics, the sort of people that were responding, and based on information from them, the success or otherwise of a particular strategy. So I'm all for producing figures and analytics where appropriate, but from a personal point of view, I suppose it's the cobbler and his shoes, isn't it? I think I said this last week too about something. I don't particularly need that myself because I suppose a lot of it's carried around in my head, and if I'm happy with what's happening, where I can see it happening, I don't need to forensically examine it. Whereas for a client, I do need to put it down clearly so they can understand what I'm doing for them.
We must use some analytics. So, Ishtar, are there any analytics that you do use on a regular basis? It doesn't have to be marketing ones particularly.
Do you know what? Because I'm probably most active on LinkedIn at the moment, I do keep an eye on how far my reach is for my posts, to be honest. I think that's the main one. And I remember last year when I'd set up my Renovate business, my focus was, obviously my target audience was women. And so I was actually checking gender-related stats. But other than that, probably not a lot, to be honest. And
you, Chris, do you have a preference on analytical data you do use?
Yeah, once again, LinkedIn, the reach of LinkedIn, and from the reach, you can find out where that reach is coming from, the sort of job titles that they have. It doesn't give names, which is frustrating. It'd be great if they did, wouldn't it? But the sort of job titles, the location. So there is some geodemographic information that you can achieve.
I mean, it's slightly further down the line, but my accounting software allows for me to look at what types of work have come in, and obviously what the profit margins are for that work. So if I've done a campaign that's specifically focused on websites and getting website work in, has that turned into actual jobs? And if it has, what have been the margins of that as against, say, a graphic design campaign, and which type of work do I want to go after more in the future? Is the one that's better than the other? Is it the one that's more profitable might be harder to get hold of, in which case then you going into do you need to do the campaigns, will you make the money back? So there is, I suppose we've mentioned a lot of the analytical data that comes with the social stuff, but this is analytical data that probably will run right the way through your business, and you might not even realise it's marketing relevant by virtue of the fact that, I mean, you might be just looking at how many jobs you've had on the board. Well, that might feel more like it's a business process, or even turnaround times. Turnaround times, you might be thinking, well, that's not got anything to do with marketing. Well, maybe it has. Maybe there's a type of work you can turn around quicker, in which case, do you go after that as a campaign? Is that a boast? If you can turn it around super fast, is that something you want to promote as being a USP?
Absolutely, yeah,
you're right, because I think actually going on what you said, like the accounting statistics are actually a statistic and an analysis point for me as well, because you'll see peaks and troughs in work, like which seasons were the most busy and which ones were less busy and stuff. So yeah, you're right actually.
And I suppose it allows you to be more effective. You can use your budget more precisely. If you've got a limited budget, if you've got £100 to spend, you want to spend it on something which is going to make the most of that £100, not speculatively spend it and hope for the best. And the data that comes from those campaigns will allow you to analyse what worked and what didn't, and if it turns out your £100 was completely wasted, by looking at that data you can at least go, well, I won't be spending my £100 on that next week.
Yeah, at the wrong time either. Yeah, exactly.
There is a challenge when it comes to analytical data, because there is that much of it out there at the minute. Your approach has very much been it. Your approach has been very much I'll not do that. But is there anything that could persuade you to perhaps change that approach from your business perspective? I mean, I'm ignoring what you do for your clients, because I've seen firsthand the reports you do this stuff, but what is it that perhaps might open the gates to the wonderments of more analytical data in your life?
I suppose well, we touched on it earlier. I suppose if there was any semblance of uniformity between all the various platforms, it would make it a lot more easy to appreciate. But LinkedIn will provide analytics by a certain criteria, Facebook a different criteria, Google different again, far more complicated and weird. Instagram, I don't know. I'm sure Ishtar does, because you're an Insta person, aren't you, Ishtar? Yeah. But they're all different, and obviously they're all different. They're all different companies. They probably trade off being different, but that's not good for somebody like me, who just wants a quick look at the top line. Is it working? Isn't it working? Am I reaching the right people or not? If I'm not, what am I doing wrong? Is it the language I'm using? Is it the time I'm putting my social media posts out? What's wrong? Because you can tell an awful lot, but it's just so complex to go through each and every platform and work out its vagaries.
He's segued wonderfully into the challenge that we set ourselves this week, which was last week. You remember we all threw our pictures into the midst for public scrutiny, and our egos were somewhat battered and bruised come the end of it. This week we wanted to try and have a look at our statistics on some of the more common platforms. I quite like the idea of doing a top trumps, but actually what's transpired is that we found out very much what Chris has said, that there's not really a consistency across the platforms for getting the same information. We've mentioned in previous episodes about how some platforms are more geared towards certain demographics of people, whether it be age or sex, and therefore it will be handy to be able to analyse that data on all of the platforms to make sure that is in fact the case. So what we did was we set the target of going onto Instagram, Google and LinkedIn. The initial plan was to look at our statistics and data for location, demographic, sex demographic and age demographic. What we found was that it was absolutely impossible to do that on all three of these. So Ishtar, let's start with Instagram, because that was the one where we did actually get all three forms of data. Was there any information that was particularly of surprise for you?
Yes, my country location demographic was highly surprising, and actually my plan of world domination may actually be coming true without me even knowing it.
Excellent.
Because I managed to have followers in the UK, US, UAE, Brazil and France. Nice.
Business trips to there in the future. Obviously, post-pandemic, you don't want to go there at the minute. Brazil's not a place to visit at the moment.
No. To be fair, the UK, US and UAE makes sense because I've got connections there. Brazil and France, no.
What sort of percentages are we talking for the non-UK countries then?
Non-UK countries, below 10%, to be fair.
Okay. I have 1.1% of my followers are from Indonesia and Vietnam. Now, I don't know anyone there, so I'm intrigued as to who actually finds my content even remotely interesting in Vietnam. But hey, if you want to get on the blower, we can have a chat. It'd be nice. Pen pals, perhaps. Yeah, I have 92.6% of my demographic is UK based. And actually, look at that, 35% is actually regionally based as well. So my strategy very much is to dominate the area I live in. I want to be the king of the castle.
Dominate West Kirby.
Yeah. So while you're on the process of world domination, when you get to the Wirral and Merseyside, Ishtar, you've got yourself a problem because you'll have me, the king, to have to deal with.
I reckon I'll leave you to your plot.
So I was quite pleased with that. What about age range? Are you young and hip with the young kids?
Yes. 70% of my followers are aged between 25 and 44.
Okay. So, and which is the most popular age range that you get?
44, which is actually my target audience.
Okay. Yeah, my 35 to 44 is my most popular one. But actually, if you break that down into the sexes, I actually attract more young men. I should phrase that very carefully. And more older women.
That's well interesting. Wait, let me read mine. I'm an equal split, men and women, at the same age range. To be fair.
Well, I seem to be more of an interest to those more mature, which I will take as a compliment, quite frankly.
Brilliant.
And you also mentioned, Ishtar, that your specific target is the female market.
Yeah.
Does that reflect your followers?
Yeah, 70%.
Because I've got 65.4% men. Now, I don't know whether that's because, for example, we sponsor a grassroots club, so I don't know whether the figures are slightly warped by the fact that those lads will probably follow and therefore change it. I'm quite surprised by that size of demographic, largely because I don't think the content is particularly male orientated. So, but clearly there's something that's attracting more men and more mature women.
Maybe we need to dig deeper into those analytics, Mark, and find out.
Absolutely. What about Google Analytics location-wise? What were the stats coming out there?
So I got country splits, 60% UK, 40% US.
Okay. It's strange, isn't it, the US and what the size of the percentage is for people following?
Yeah, but I mean, like, I probably know where in the US people are logging in from because it's probably friends, to be fair. And so I think that probably is why it's not as high as... I mean, still 40% is quite a high amount, though, to be fair, on my analytics. But I think I did it for the last, 30 days or something like that. So more skewed if it was a longer period.
I had 40%, which was UK based, which is good. 36% USA. Don't know anyone in America. So again, the one real interest was 28% of my website visitors for the last 30 days have been from Germany. Wunderbar. Das ist sehr gut. If my German followers are listening. Dankeschön.
Leave a comment.
In German. I can read it. I can dust off the GCSE German books. We're all right. We'll get there. So, yeah, that was quite surprising. I mean, 28% from Germany seems an awfully large number of people from Germany going onto my website.
Yeah. And it's not even in German either.
No. Clearly, I'm of interest to the mature lady and a German.
About a German mature lady.
Hey. What about LinkedIn? What sort of location demographics were you picking up, Ishtar?
24% from Manchester. This is actually much more geographically UK focused, which was interesting. So a lot of my posts are being read in the UK. I have got 2% of followers from Portugal and 2% from Germany as well.
Good old Germany. And what about you, Mr. Roxburgh?
I've got 42% Liverpool, 23% Chester, 21% Manchester, which I probably attribute to the various workshops that I do over there for One Manchester, which is where I met Ishtar. Warrington's 3%. Then I've got London, Wigan. I shouldn't laugh, but I've got as many in London as I have in London.
You see, that's quite interesting because I have 36% of my visitors or followers Chester-based, 29% Liverpool, and then it drops right back to 6% Manchester.
That was me.
So again, my demographics are very much locally orientated, which is consistent with what I try and target. This is where it's quite frustrating about the lack of consistency, because some information is quite useful on platforms which would be useful on others. On LinkedIn, now we did a photo feeler review last week, Chris, and you came across as being very influential and I don't want to say sophisticated because I don't think that was, but something along those lines.
Sophisticated.
Yeah. So with your demographics, what sort of seniority stats have we got? What kind of people are linking in with you?
Yeah, I've got 26% senior, 22% director, 13.5% vice presidents. Owners 13.5%, and then I've got entry level 13%, and so on and so forth. And so yeah, some fairly senior people there, which I'm happy with.
What about you, Ishtar? What's your influential address book looking like?
Yeah, actually, that's really interesting about that entry thing, because I hadn't actually read that in great detail before. But based on the business, I've got just because I've just spotted how interesting that is. So senior people 37.3, entry 22.6, director 19, VP 8%, manager 6, owner 3, CXO 1, partner 1.
Yeah.
It's odd, isn't it, how you get those different stats. I've got 30% senior, 28% directors. Entry, I mean, I don't really know what entry is. That comes in at 12%. I don't really know what entry is. Obviously, VPs. VPs is a very American thing, though, isn't it? Vice presidents and presidents. So that doesn't surprise me. That's quite low. And XCOs, that's sort of a bit of another
executive officer.
Yeah, it's a bit of an Americanized position.
Americanism. The job function is bang on for me. It's who I want to target. I've got 44% business development, so that I'm happy about that. The top one.
Yeah. What about you, Ishtar? What's your top one?
Business development as well, which is so strange, to be fair, because I obviously am not targeting a particular job function because I can help everybody.
Nice plug there. Yeah, I too have business development at top of my list, 37%.
That was me thinking I was doing something clever to.
No, well, this is the problem with top trumps, Chris. Yeah, this is the problem with top trumps. You lose some when you thought you were going to win. Right, I suppose we should sort of wrap this up slightly with perhaps how people might want to try and understand whether or not it's relevant for them. Have we got any tips to give them about whether or not they should look into it, who they're perhaps best speaking to?
Chris Roxburgh.
Yes, I have. I think choose the analytics that you regard as being important to you, and try to block out all the other noise, because it is noise, and you can end up making life incredibly complicated if you try to take all the analytics on board. So find out what's important to you, and go with that.
Indeed. Shameless plug for Mr. Roxbury. If you're going to do, say, a LinkedIn lead campaign, then LinkedIn stats are going to be of relevance, and perhaps Google Analytics might be, to see whether that traffic is visiting your website off the back of that. There are other things perhaps you can do to tap it in, but Facebook Insights is of zero relevance to you if you're doing a LinkedIn campaign, really. So, like you say, you're silencing stuff that perhaps isn't necessary. I think you've got to. It boils down to marketing strategies, doesn't it? Really, have you got a strategy? Do you know what it is you want to do? Why you want to do it? How are you going to do it? What your budget is for doing it, and that will then help you determine what stuff might be of use to you. If you don't have those, again, it's just you're sort of fumbling around in the hope you might come across the right analytics for the right thing.
It goes all the way back to, we've said it countless times on these podcasts, know your customer, target your customer, then check the analytics to make sure that your customer is the one that is responding, is looking at your posts, is actually contacting you and engaging. So know your customer. Yep.
Indeed. And of course, always bear in mind GDPR, that wonderful 4-letter pain in the ass that is GDPR. So, yeah, as I mentioned before, analytics can be stuff that you do internally for your own internal benefits. It doesn't have to be a platform that provides you with all these tools, and just be careful when you're doing it to make sure you're not doing anything you shouldn't be with that personal data. Definitely a tip. Ishtar, do we have a tool tip?
I would just honestly, I did research and think which one's going to be the best, but to be fair, I think you should just pick, as Chris rightly said, pick a platform based on a strategy that you have, and just focus on that insight or that analytic, and just let everything else go, because that, I feel like ignorance is bliss when it comes to analytics, because if you look at your analytics and it doesn't show the correct stats, then you've got to change your marketing content, and that leads to a whole host of other beautiful things. So if you just are getting your customers from wherever you're getting them from, focus on your content, focus on your insights from that particular topic, because there's just no point in looking at Google Analytics if it doesn't mean anything to you.
No, I guess perhaps a tool tip. I've mentioned this one before. Hotjar is a great one for your website. It's really easy to install. There is a free version you can use. It creates a heat map on your website, and you can put it on all of the pages or just specific pages. And so what you can do is, in addition to perhaps looking at your Google Analytics to see who goes where, what you can also see when they land on that page is what they do in actual terms. So if the cursor tends to go over to a certain point on the page, or if they only scroll so far down the page, if you've got the world's most amazing call to action 3/4 of the way down the page, but actually only 1% of people scroll down that far, what you realise is, from Hotjar's results, you need to move that call to action further up the page. I was introduced to it by someone who'd done some work with a large insurance company, and they'd used it, and they'd found that they'd increased their sales calls by about 40% by moving the call us button from the middle on the banner to the top right-hand corner, because what they found from the heat map was that because people tend to control the mouse using the right hand, the natural inclination was for the cursor to sort of wander off into that top right-hand corner. And with the call button being there instead of in the middle, people were already hovering over it straight away when they landed. And so their natural reaction was click and get on with it. So, useful tool.
That is a useful tool.
With a full analysis of that episode, we've done analytics to a point. Yes, thank you very much. That wasn't even planned, people.
It was a good one.
Thank you. I get far more compliments from you, Ishtar, than Chris. He's just thoroughly unamused by my witty bants. I was waiting for him to say something nice, but no, it wasn't coming, was it?
No. Move on, Mark.
So, hopefully you found that episode useful. If you haven't, let us know. If you have, let us know. You can send an email to gofish@thepodstation.co.uk. Get in touch with us on the social media platforms mentioned at the outset. If you've got a subject you want us to touch upon, send us there. Give us a review if you're listening to us on the platform. It's dead easy. Just go on there, give us 5 stars, and all will be well. What else? Check out all the other shows. They're all on there. This is number 47, so there's 46 other ones that you can listen to that you'll hopefully find useful. Share them with your friends. Share them with your enemies. Share them with your business contacts. Share them with random people. I don't know. It's all good for us. But hopefully more people who hear it will hopefully find it useful, and so we can help them. Thank you very much for listening. Ishtar, Chris, thank you as always for your wonderful input.
Thank you, Mark.
And we will catch you next time, guys. We'll see you later. Bye now.
All the best. Bye now.
Get social at go_fish marketing on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.